There's some thoughts about COVID-19. Since we're at the end of the immunity section here, I thought it might be constructive or beneficial to take some of the things we've learned and apply them to the situation we're all experiencing at the moment. So, if we think about it from the perspective of challenge or defense, we have the COVID-19, coronavirus 19. It's a new virus. It's not something any human immune system has ever seen before. It's got a pretty high morbidity. It's fairly contagious, not as much as the measles, not as low as some other things like the flu. It transfers by contact and seems to have a long incubation period where we don't really show symptoms, which we can be a carrier and transfer to other people without knowing that. So that makes it very successful. If you look at the daily briefings related to New York, um, of all the tests that come back positive, about 80% resolve, 20% are hospitalized, and there's an overall in New York about a 1% mortality rate. So these numbers might change a lot if we found out how many people are positive definitively. There's some thought that there's a lot of non-symptomatic positives, which would, if we could include them, that would increase uh, the the positive test results that resolve or lower our hospitalization rate and lower our mortality rate. But you're looking at something here that humans have never dealt with. So we're thinking about human immunity. We have the passive or first line. It's certainly helpful. If we don't have any cuts and stuff in our hands, the coronavirus can't get in. So we wash our hands to flush the virus off our hands and things like that. So we can help with that first line of events by or first line of defense by staying healthy, keeping our skin healthy, making sure that we hydrate and our mucous membranes are working the way they should. We don't have chapped lips. We don't have dry sinuses. All that stuff will help keep that virus out of our system. Non-specific second line, that's going to work more or less the same for humans, but it's not going to necessarily recognize this particular virus, especially if it hides inside the cells of our body as an invader. So that's really not effective, especially if it hides in a cell. The purpose of a virus is probably the smallest unit of life that we recognize. It's basically just the genetic code, and that genetic code somehow gets on a active live human cell. The virus takes its kind of outer shell and injects the DNA it needs to replicate into the cell, the live cell of the host, and then uses the host's uh, machinery to replicate itself. So you have these viruses being produced inside of cells, and so the second line of defense may not recognize those. So that's where the third line of defense, and probably the most important when you're dealing with a virus of this kind. The problem is that because this is new, nobody has any specific or third line defenses related to this, except for the people that have recovered. And there are some thought that they're going to take the antibodies that people have that have recovered, concentrate those, and inject them into other people to help them recover before they make their own. So you're looking at somebody that's got a compromised immune system. Antibodies from somebody else might be helpful. But nobody's ever seen this before. This is new as of December or November somewhere. So there's no herd immunity. So when they were talking about the flu, well, this is just like the flu, it'll be all right, nothing that. The thing about the flu, yes, we lose lots of people each year to the flu, but we have a herd immunity toward the flu. We've had the flu before, we have vaccines, we have a way to create an active immune response, or we have an active immune response stored in memory for variations of the flu. So, as a species, we have a certain amount of herd immunity. There was none of that for this COVID 19, and that's what makes it particularly scary is that pretty much everybody will catch it in some way, shape, or form. Now, we don't know that for sure, but as I do this today, they're talking about, millions of people contracting this. And even at a 0.5% death rate, 0.5% of a million is still a lot of people. So there are no T cells to attack the virus related to COVID 19. So the only way those are going to happen is if you have the disease and your body learns. If it doesn't kill you, it make you stronger. So next time it comes around, you should have an immune response to that, the active, specific, or third line defense. Now, do we know that for sure? No, we aren't sure if people can get reinfected yet. That's a pretty scary thought when you think about it. You can survive it and then get reinfected. But there are antibodies being produced, so that suggests that there's going to be at least some defense for the second time this comes through. But this first time, nobody has any immunity to it. So that's why the high infection rate um, going through and the chance for, if things really turn out bad, for millions of people to die. I don't think that's going to happen, but there are challenges therein. So if you're thinking about the challenge versus the defense, um, take the what you've learned in this class and kind of apply it to the things you hear on the TV and from the CDC of how things are going to work and how things are going to play out as we move forward.